All right, thanks, Bob. And good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to go through this, giving you some basic concepts of what MineSphere is and where we are with this product today. So what is MineSphere? It is the Siemens cloud-based, what we would like to call IoT operating system. Yeah, it's a platform technology. It consists of a suite which covers everything from connectivity to a fundamental infrastructure as a service layer and software as a service layer. And I'll take some time to explain that. The most attractive and differentiating part of this portfolio is that all those three layers, what we have worked very hard upon is all those three layers, the connectivity layer, the infrastructure as a service or the cloud layer, and the software as a service layer. We have worked on making all these three layers as open as possible. And when I say open, I don't mean open source, but open in terms of technology and the ability to connect devices. So for example, the connectivity layer, which we call MineConnect, these are the brandings that we have now. The MineConnect has got, apart from the ability to connect to all Siemens devices, it's also got interfaces with, it's got an OPC UA interface, which should enable us to connect with almost 80% of the equipment out there which run on these standards. I mean, all Siemens equipment have both these ports, for example. So the idea was that we should be able to connect most of the machinery and equipment and control systems out there onto this platform, right? The second piece, the infrastructure as a layer, a service layer, or the cloud layer, if I might call it, we kept that as open as possible. In other words, one can choose any cloud provider that they work with. Now, all of those interfaces are not available today. I'll show you which ones are, but we are building them as we go by, and the idea is that if you are a customer who is locked into a certain cloud account, you don't want a situation where if you want to go onto MineSphere, now you have to go somewhere else. So in that sense, we've kept that layer also open. And finally, software as a service layer or the application layer. Now this is where the value is created. I mean, you can get data, you can store it, you can do all those nice things, but if you don't do something with that, of course, it's meaningless. So the software as a services layer or the application layer on top is also open. What do I mean by that? We are releasing on a monthly basis, starting from February, March, APIs, which will enable anybody, not just the Siemens people, but anybody out there. In other words, we want to build an ecosystem to develop applications based on the domain knowledge that they have, the expertise that they have in their area of work, and also based on all the data that is being sent up to the cloud. And so APIs should enable us to develop an ecosystem which we hope over time will be what we call the industrial app store. Yeah. So that is MineSphere in a nutshell as a concept. Now, one of the challenges, I mean, there are a lot of systems out there who everybody talks about, hey, I can get the data, and once I have the data, I can do all these applications. But I think we all know that one of the challenges in the manufacturing industry is the ability to make that connectivity as easy as possible. If connecting your machine and getting data to the cloud is going to be an engineering project, I think that will never fly. Or on the other hand, if you have firms or companies which are making fantastic apps, but have not cracked the connectivity layer. So you can have the apps, but you don't get the kind of machine data that you need. So we focused a lot on that, and therefore we came up with what we call the MineConnect. This is the picture that you see on the left. We call it it's the IoT gateway. We call it MineConnect. It is based on an industrial PC, but a ruggedized version, which has been customized for this application. And the idea is that with this, and what this picture depicts is, that's a DIN rail mounted device. It takes 3 connections. It takes a power supply, an incoming network, and an outgoing to the internet. And you hook up that box. The picture in the middle talks about, then you get your access to MineSphere, and you can log in and configure the data that you want to transmit based on the machines that you're connecting to that box. You can configure all that. You can configure the data that you're going to take. You configure how frequently you want it. And all the things that you want to do and do easily in terms of getting data up into the cloud. And once you've configured that and the data starts flowing, then you are practically ready to run your service. Because now you have the data. MineSphere has some built-in applications, which I'll talk about, and it enables almost any small size, medium size, big size company, manufacturer to connect and do this very easily and in a very, very cost-effective way. So that has really been the biggest, let me call it, differentiator in what we have come out with, because if that piece was difficult, then it's very difficult to do anything on top. Now, the version of MineSphere that you get today, if you don't want to use any apps and you just buy the basic version of MineSphere today, apart from the connectivity box, it comes in with two built-in applications. One is called the Visual Analyzer. The Visual Analyzer, basically now you can start configuring the data to start viewing them in whatever graph, chart forms you want. And it is based on a rule engine that we have built in so that you can do this visualization, you can do thresholding, you can do signaling, you can do various kinds of things based on rules that you build in there. So kind of an expert system facility that is already built into MineSphere. And with that, I can tell you, talking to customers over the last 6 to 8 months, a lot of customers have this fundamental challenge of, where do I start this journey? And what has been good for us and successful has been, I always advise them, let's take a machine in your plant. Let's connect it. First, you get an idea of how easy it is to connect that. Then let's start transmitting data, and let's start using the Visual Analyzer for you to get a feeling of what is there, what is possible, and the power of this thing. And by the way, in the meanwhile, you're getting a lot of data transparency of what's going on in your plant. So that's how we advise that customers start their journey. The other app that's built into MineSphere is called the Fleet Manager. What is a Fleet Manager? This is a classic requirement of an OEM. An OEM is selling his equipment all over the world. He's deployed his fleet out there, be it a machine tool manufacturer or any other OEM. Now, an OEM can connect to his machines through this scheme, and now he starts getting data, insights into how his machine is operating, how the customers are using the machine. Now, a very good example that I came across a couple of months ago was one of our customers who said that it was a compressor manufacturer, and he said that they got their stuff all over the world. And they work through distributors. And every time something is wrong with that machine, which always, of course, in the last minute, a service guy has to be flown in somewhere and set right. Or every machine that comes back because it is broken is, whether you like it or not, a warranty case. And they spend millions and millions of dollars just addressing this. So in situations like that, when you can connect to your fleet and you're gathering data, you're seeing how the machine is operating, you're also seeing how it is being used, and now you're able to plan, you're able to get an idea of, is this going to have some trouble? You can plan inventory, you can plan your service scheduling, you can build a whole service business as an OEM around this, a new revenue stream. And that helps them differentiate. It helps an OEM to move up the value chain with that kind of a possibility. So that is MineSphere and what it can do in its basic version. Now, two types of customers, apart from many others that are not mentioned here, but in the manufacturing world, two types of customers who benefit out of that. The equipment supplier or the OEM. Clearly, for them, everything that I mentioned so far, increasing service efficiency, lowering warranty costs, generating new services, new business models for services, and then enhancing their product capability, design, etc., via the feedback that they get. Very powerful, very useful for them. The equipment operator or the end user, it's all about availability for them. It's all about uptime. And that is something this enables, just monitoring, even with the basic apps. And we've seen that. We've worked with customers where machines where they were never able to say that something might be going wrong, we're at least able to get first insight. Now, it is not the big data analytics yet, but even just looking at things that you could never see before and looking at it in a way where you're able to look at the parameters and how it works, you're able to start getting better sense for your machine. So the end user can optimize his assets, and of course, the whole thing then feeds into their maintenance and the overall plant efficiency reliability program. At a very basic level, these are some of the things that they can do. I haven't even gone into the areas of how do you then start looking at yield optimization? How do you bring intelligence? Now, these are the things that will evolve to as applications develop on this platform. So some success stories so far for MineSphere, a major software drink producer. Now, one of the challenges, and I think most of us who know manufacturing industry, especially an industry like this, which is driven by hundreds of small motors. Monitoring small motors in the typical condition monitoring way is one of the most expensive propositions. And so it was never done. I mean, you always did for the most critical or for bigger assets. In a very cost-effective way, this enables us to do that. Today with wireless sensors for $10, which you can just plug onto machines, collecting data, and start monitoring these machines. A big benefit for the software drink producer was basically asset uptime and then getting a sense for how their motors are operating. A multinational steel company, now they run motors too, but these are big and very, very application critical motors and drives. So for them, it was all about monitoring those, making sure that, it was not even about having spare parts, it's about how can I project and protect this motor before it fails, where I don't have that downtime. And those of us who know steel plants, these are really large critical assets. Yeah? And they can visualize that whole fleet of motors out there. Another example, in a major international airport, the failure prediction of baggage systems. And I think all of us know what this means when a baggage system fails, and the ability to start looking at that and upfront finding out that something is going wrong here and being able to prevent it before it can happen, or at least being prepared for it if you see something going on there. Yeah? So those are some of the things that we've been working on so far, customers that have benefited of that. And I have to also mention here, we always go into the market with our classical ideas of what we want to do. But when you start discussing with the customers and the pain points they have, the applications that come out are something that we would never have imagined could be valuable on this platform. And that is what we are seeing more and more. And talking to ecosystem partners whom we want that they develop applications, it is amazing what they come up with. Everything ranging from supply chain kind of applications to the most detailed predictive analytics on critical machines and applications. So it is amazing what comes up as an application. And I think that is the biggest benefit. If you can provide that platform and get that data easily, I think there's enough creativity out there to start thinking about, okay, what do I do with this data? What apps can I build? And it is a whole series of things that will come out of that. Now, two things that I do want to talk about is I talked about the software as a service layer being an open layer. So we are going to be releasing, we actually have beta versions of our APIs, or the application programming interfaces. And we have some beta customers who are developing apps using those APIs, and I'll show you a list of them. So these APIs are going to be the cornerstone of all that we want up there in the ecosystem. For those of you who have also seen some announcements that we've made, it's not just the APIs that we are developing, but we are also working, for example, with IBM Watson Analytics, trying to get some of their APIs integrated into our architecture. And one of the first ones that will come on is the Cognos API that Watson Analytics has, which is basically a very sophisticated dashboarding, reporting kind of APIs. But you will see more and more APIs from us, from other partners, coming on to the system, into the architecture, which will make it really powerful to build applications. So it's not a static thing. It's a very dynamic environment. We expect, as time goes by in the next few months, that on a monthly or quarterly basis, we will be releasing APIs. We'll be releasing new features on the platform. It's a bit like the Tesla car. For those of you who have it, you get a software download and you got a whole new car again. A bit like that, features that will enable new things. Now, one of the other things which is more important, which we also thought of and which we spend a lot of time and money on at the moment, is what we call the southbound APIs. That means APIs for connecting devices. Now, we know that a lot of the devices, it's a brownfield economy there. There's a lot of installed base, a lot of legacy systems over the last 30, 40, 50 years, and some of them have to be connected with boxes the way I showed, and some of them have to be interfaced. And yes, that's exactly how we are starting. But we are also going to be releasing APIs southbound where manufacturers of machinery, control systems, and whoever they are, can use these APIs now to start building in the connectivity into the new range of products that come in. And that way you can do it with the box. And the idea is that over 5, 10, 15 years, we have more and more equipment with a universal connectivity built in as a software agent into the product rather than to have this box. And that is what you see below there, the Mind Connect gateways and the Mind Connect APIs. So a lot of work going on in this area and a lot of development that we are doing. And it's, we have been, I must say, Siemens as a company, we have been quiet. We like to get our things right before we launch, but you will see, you'll hear more and more now of real stuff that we are working on. So I talked about beta APIs and partners who are developing stuff for us. So here are some of those partners who already started working with us, building apps and even other things. So Atos, for example, is working with our beta APIs. They're going to be an app developer. They're also going to be a system integrator. They want to take MineSphere solutions to the marketplace. They will also be an infrastructure provider. Like I said, we want to be cloud agnostic, and they're one of them who can provide that service. Microsoft have signed up for developing apps. They will also be a technology partner in many ways, but they will also be, the Microsoft Azure Cloud is an announcement we made that will also be open to this platform. SAP, the whole project started with SAP's HANA Cloud platform as the basis. We had to start somewhere, and that's where we started. So they are an important cog in the wheel for us. IBM is going to be a very, I would say, strong partnership because they're going to be from app development to technology to system integrator. I think even with their cloud, I think they can do a lot of stuff, and so that's going to be an important partnership. Accenture, as soon as they saw this in the Hanover Fair last year, they immediately came out with a list of 5 or 6 different applications that they had in mind. And they've been waiting for this beta APIs to come up, and they've started working. So you will see releases of their applications that they're working on as we start commercializing that in the next few months. EvoSoft is a company that helps develop apps. They are also one of our partners in developing the technology platform itself. So there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot that's going to be coming out in the course of 2017. It's going to be an exciting year for us because we believe that this will make the difference. It is a solution that has been thought through from the shop floor connectivity right up to the application layer. And so that, I believe, is going to make the big difference. Some of the strengths, I mean, fundamentally, we'll see it as an IoT operating system. I like to call it the IIoT operating system because it's really going to enable the industrial Internet of Things a lot. We ourselves, as a vendor, as an OEM, Siemens has millions and billions of installed base out there. I mean, connecting those itself is a big challenge and is a big benefit. But then if you start looking at the various verticals that are out there and start developing applications specific to verticals, by the way, that's one of the approaches we are taking. We don't want to make generic apps. I mean, there'll always be generic apps, but we also want to make sure that there are vertical specific applications so that the bang for the buck is much higher and it serves a broader spectrum of people. I mean, all of you know that we have our PLM business, which is an advanced business, and the famous concept of designing in the virtual world and simulating in the virtual world and testing the manufacturing in the virtual world and seamlessly rolling it out for manufacturing. What MineSphere does is, once it's rolled out for manufacturing, all the data that we're gathering, the operational data, can now be looped back into the PL system, and now you can start testing your digital twin to see how it performs against designs and how can you tweak it. Now that loop is not closed yet, but that is clearly on the roadmap, and that'll be a big, big strength once we can close that loop, because I think that'll be very, very, very powerful. And I think that will lead to what I might call in a few years from today, autonomous manufacturing, because in my view, autonomous manufacturing is, the factory gets a data model as an order. The factories self-organize themselves to produce based on that data model, and the logistics self-organize themselves to deliver it back to the guy who placed the order. And I think these technologies and these bindings are really going to help that whole future of autonomous manufacturing. We wanted to make it as much as possible plug-and-play connectivity, and I think we've achieved a lot of that. Is it going to be perfect? No, but it is not going to be an engineering project. So that's the beauty of this whole system. And the ecosystem is going to be, I think it's going to be phenomenal, because if you look at the breadth of domain expertise that is there in the industry today, and if you look at the players and the number of players, not just in the US, globally. By the way, this beta version that we released, which we have chosen specific partners to work, I think we picked about 30 partners who are developing applications, but from around the world, because we wanted to get a sense of how it is being perceived and how people are thinking about it and what creative stuff they come up with around the world and not just in one market. So that's exactly what we're doing. So one more challenge that is, of course, there, which we come across, and I come across all the time is, and I mentioned this some time back, customers always struggle with, where do I start with this? I have a production plant. It's got equipment and machinery ranging from 1 month old to 30 years old. I want to be in this game. I know this is the future. Where do I start? So what we've started doing is we've started working with customers, especially a lot of small and medium-sized customers, starting to do some deep dive workshops with them. Because the idea is we tell them, look, we don't want you to be thinking about 40 different things. Let's do a workshop. At the end of the day, let's come up with a use case that solves at least one of your problems. Let's apply it to that and maybe even build an application if it means that, and then take it from there. So we do these workshops, then we take it to the proof of concept together with them, and ongoing support to make sure that that's working. Because clearly, if we have a customer who's connected a machine and goes through this whole process, he is going to connect more. And this whole model, this whole revenue stream is based on a subscription services. So for us, and for a lot of the system integrators, what is going to be important with this platform is how many assets are connected, how many data points are being transferred, what compute power is being used, how many apps are being used, and all this is sort of bundled into a pricing model which then generates a subscription price per month. And we've tried to keep it as effective as possible. I can tell you that it's very similar. If you're an iPhone, if you want to go for a smartphone today, and if some provider tells you today it's going to cost you $250 a month, you're not going to go anywhere close to that, right? We're getting used to affordable prices. That's the kind of pricing model that we are working out here also, and it's been interesting. In the US, we already have, we launched it in the US in October. It was a soft launch. We already have about 30 customers connected, doing POCs, some of them building their own apps now. So it's very exciting, very interesting. And it's only going to grow exponentially, but it is a powerful platform.